Hi, I'm Gaurav Anand from Wine Forays, and my guest today is Michela Inghese from the Gaja Winery from the Piemonte region of Italy. We are here today at Le Cirque at the Leela Palace in New Delhi, and Michela is visiting India, and she's here to promote the Gaja Wines. Her title is actually Wine Ambassador, actually an ambassador for Gaja Wines, which I think is an absolutely fantastic title and a great job to have. So I'm going to start by asking you, Michela, what is it that you do as the ambassador for Gaja Wines?
I actually try to do is to bring the people closer to Gaja Wines. Gaja is already an ambassador for Italian high-end wines. Well, what is very important for me is try to transmit that a Gaja wine at least is an artisan wine. This is the specialty about the Gaja wine. That the success of Gaja does not come from a marketing campaign, also because we do not have marketing within the Gaja wineries. And what does it mean, artisan wine? An artisan wine at least is a wine that is made on the vineyards, not in the wine cellar. A Gaja wine is, and this is absolutely very important, you have to think twice about what I'm going to say. A Gaja wine is an expression of the vintage and expression of the terroir. So at least a very unique wine. If you have a Gaja wine, you can be sure that is totally different every vintage because dependent on the climatic conditions of the vintage. This is a very interesting wine. And when I say expression of the terroir, I would like also to mention the new estates Gaja now have in Tuscany, the one in Montalcino and the one in Bolgheri. These wines are very interesting too because here we can also see what the Gaja mentioned with the expression of the Tuscan terroir. It's very interesting. It's absolutely very interesting, and I try to explain how these wines are produced, how difficult the production is, how hard the work on the vineyards is, with how many efforts and with how many sacrifices. And I would like just to mention one very important sacrifice. It's, for example, that the Gajas do not release their wines in mediocre vintages. I mean, if you think about it, it's foolish. And of course, to produce a Gaja wine, as I said, means that the wine is made on the vineyard, and this does not allow you to go upon a certain quantity. So we have only a limited production. It's tough to cover all the world, but it's very important for the Gajas to be well represented all around the world, to make sure that the people understand that we Italians are of course able to produce unique wine, high-end wines, and they feel really very obliged to follow this philosophy, which is definitely a philosophy that began in 1859, so since 150 years when Gaja was founded. So they have definitely a very important role, and I'm so glad. Sometimes I meet also other producers all around the world, other Italian producers, and their approach is so kind because they do not consider Gaja as a competitor, also because how could Gaja be a competitor with this small quantity of production he has, but they know that if Gaja follows a new market that is growing, they know that their comprehension for Italian wines will from now on change. They will not only be focused on commercial wines, but only on artisan wines. As I told you, wines made with very special and difficult efforts on the vineyards, and this is why for me it is always very important that the people are really they really understand what they are tasting.
Okay, sounds great.
This is my goal.
So I think one of the things that's important to understand is that the Piemonte region in Italy is all about the Nebbiolo grape. Nebbiolo is perhaps the most important grape in Piemonte, and it also is completely unique because apart from the Piemonte region of Italy and a few little smaller corners in northern Italy, it is rarely grown successfully anywhere else in the world. And while the Nebbiolo grape, it has qualities that we won't go into here. It's used to make wines by two famous names. One is Barolo and the other is Barbaresco. Barolo and Barbaresco are both well-known names in India, at least within the wine circles. Those who enjoy wine know these as wines of prestige, as expensive wines. But also, some friends have told me that they hate Barolo with a vengeance, perhaps because they drink it too young or they don't understand the tannins or the high acidity. So what is your opinion about that? You understand Nebbiolo well, and you make wines in Barolo and in Barbaresco. So what is your suggestion to Indian wine drinkers who would like to enjoy these wines, but perhaps they cannot do so immediately because they find them too aggressive or too tannic? What is your suggestion for them?
Well, thank you very much. Before I tell you my suggestion, I would like to quickly describe the Nebbiolo grape variety, because as you said, is of course a very important grape variety, especially for the Piedmontese area. I think Nebbiolo uniquely captures the terroir and is able to express the terroir. And the Gaias, especially Angelo Gaja since 1960, knows very well how to handle Nebbiolo. Therefore you need, of course, 150 years of experience, but at least to make sure that Nebbiolo is able to express the best, you need also a great terroir. So this is important to know, to understand a great Nebbiolo wine, that if you don't have a great terroir, you will never ever have a great Nebbiolo grape, and at least you will never have a great wine. Thanking to the previous generations, especially also Giovanni Gaja, the father of Angelo Gaja, that acquired outstanding terroirs in the Barbaresco area. The Gajas are able today to produce these high-end Nebbiolo wines exclusively from estate-owned vineyards. And as you said, usually a Nebbiolo wine can be very tannic, very strong, but I told you that the priorities of Gaja are expression of the vintage, expression of the terroir, but there is another thing which is very important for them in winemaking, and it's of course the balance in the wine. That the wine is well balanced and elegant. And therefore, this is very interesting, a few of the Gaja wines are aging not only in barrique, but also in the large traditional Slavonian oakas, which we Italian call botti. Very interesting, and you may immediately understand what I'm now going to explain is that Gaja wines are never extreme. Gaja is not extreme. Gaja is always well balanced. The balance is definitely very important, and especially this Barolo with these pheasants on the label was made to be a Barolo for the immediate consumption.
We're talking now about the Barolo Dagromis, which I'm not sure if I'm holding it up straight, but this is one of the wines that I've really enjoyed, not just today but also in the past. I've used it at tastings, etc. And it's in fact the wine in my glass right now. It has it has a wonderful aromatic quality that is all about Nebbiolo and all about Barolo, completely unique, literally rose petals wafting from the glass if you want to get poetic. But I think one of the unique things that we were discussing earlier is that this is a 2006 Dagromis, so in the scheme of things it is a young Barolo, but it's fairly approachable. It's almost soft. It's very soft, and it's a supple kind of wine, and it's easy to enjoy. And if I think if we give it to people in India who have the impression of Barolo being very hard and tannic, and who hate Barolo with a vengeance because it's so hard and tannic, I think they might enjoy this wine. Can you tell us a little bit more about this wine in particular?
Absolutely. As you said, this wine is not extreme, it's not so aggressive, it's a very balanced wine, and of course what is so surprising are these velvet tannins. And of course this matches a lot with the Indian taste, and it's a surprise because we are now tasting 2006, and even it's one of the last releases. It's
so the soft
ready
tannins.
upon release, it's enjoyable now. It's a wine that should be consumed with food, so the food matching is very important. I mean, sometimes I see matchings all around the world with which I'm not very agree, so please take care. If you have great chefs in your surroundings, the best food is of course Italian courses, but sometimes also Indian courses can be a good match with this Barolo. And well, it's very interesting because as we both, while we were tasting this wine, we were agree about that as soon as you pour the wine is ready. So it's immediately enjoyable regarding the vintage and also regarding the expression of the flavor profile. I suggest to decant this wine, but I would not necessarily wait, I don't know, 20 minutes like with the Barbaresco before I would start to judge this wine. So it's immediately ready. It was made especially for the restaurants, for, as I said, for the immediate consumption to enjoy together with food.
Okay. So one of the other wines that we were discussing, apart from, of course, the Barbaresco, which you just referred to, which happens to be the flagship wine of the Gaja estate, we were also discussing actually this wine from Tuscany. So can you just tell us a little bit about this wine, the La'Marcanda Promis? Did I say the name correctly?
You did.
Okay.
La'Marcanda, which by the way means house of negotiation.
Okay.
Marcanda comes from the Piedmontese dialect, which means, of course, negotiation. It refers to the endless negotiations Angelo Gaja had to acquire the vineyard in the Bolgheri terroir, because the previous owner was unfortunately not intended to sell, and the terroir there is very, very interesting. We have two different soil types, a very calcareous soil, which we call terre chiare, a darker soil, which is a bit richer, is a mixed soil, which we call terre brune. Well, it's a very interesting wine, seriously, because, you know, Angelo Gaja was always very curious to work about the result with international grape varieties. He's a very eager man, he always wants to face new experiences, so it never ends. So he decided to work at La'Marcanda winery only with international grape varieties, also because it's the best way to work with the Bolgheri terroir. And so this wine, for example, has a Merlot base. Then we have, of course, also Syrah and a little bit of Sangiovese, which, by the way, is the only Sangiovese we use. So just 10%, not that much. And sometimes the people during tastings they start to compare these La'Marcanda wines, especially because we have this international grape varieties, with wines from France, with wines from California. It is very important for me to make sure that the people understand that we are tasting a Tuscan wine. This is an expression of the Bolgheri terroir. It was not produced to become a French copy or a Californian copy. This is what I mean with the expression of the terroir. We have the Tuscan sun, we have the microclimate of the Bolgheri terroir, which is a very dynamic microclimate. It's great. We have hot summer days with very cool nights, and we have the sea breeze. So what's very interesting about this wine is that it is not a very complicated wine, you know. Was not made for a wine connoisseur. It is not a wine that needs to age 10 years, absolutely not. It is a wine that is ready upon release. It can be aged from 5 to 8 years. A lot of important restaurants even sell the Promis by the glass. Very interesting, because a lot of Gaia lovers were surprised that they can have a Gaia wine by the glass, but well, this wine was thought to be an enjoyable wine, an uncomplicated wine, and I think they really achieved what they meant to produce. And as I told you, we are close to the Maremma coast, so this wine is particular because I would suggest it even to fish. Not every type of fish, but at least sometimes during tastings I have clients that definitely don't like white wines. It happens.
Also in India, a lot of people
have
a very strong preference for red wine.
Yes.
So.
And so this is my suggestion. This is a red wine which is a perfect match with fish. Please be careful about the service temperatures. Seriously, again, to produce this wine is not easy. So we have to respect all the people that are hard working all the year on the field. It would be really a pity to not be able to enjoy this wine in the way it should be. So 15 degrees
Celsius, 15 degrees Celsius.
It's perfect.
And it can come out of the fridge. And
yes, especially
leave it out for,
with these temperatures.
Yeah, leave it, put it in the fridge, take it out 30 or 40 minutes before you serve it, and just let it sit. And when you touch it, it should feel cool.
Yes.
It should not feel cold or chilled, but it should feel cool. So I think you're right. The wine is fairly light on its feet. It comes in at around 13.5% alcohol, and you know, it doesn't feel heavy at all. It's very soft, and like you mentioned, it can be drunk cool. So I think it would. I agree that it could be drunk with some fish.
Yes.
Now, is there any particular Indian fish dishes that you would recommend?
I would, believe it or not. Yesterday I had the opportunity to try different fish courses, Indian, and I would suggest help me if I'm wrong with the pronunciation, tandoori.
Yeah.
Tandoori, is it right?
Yeah, yeah.
And fish tikka, right?
Perfect.
So I think this could be a very good match for the Promis.
That's perfect. Yeah, I think as long as the spices, the extreme heat is kept in check, because any of these wines, they have a level of delicacy to them, and if there's too much heat from chilies or other things in the food, I think that might go a little bit against the wine. But as long as the spicing is subtle and you know you have the good flavors from the tandoor, I think this is a perfect wine for fish, for chicken, for basically it's a versatile wine. So
I'm glad that you are agreeing. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you once again for speaking with me, and once again I think it's a great job to be a wine ambassador for one of the top estates in the world, which is Gaja, and we do see your wines around in India. Of course, we would like to see them in more places, and I hope that they will find you.
Especially the Barbaresco, the flagship wine of Gaja. If I may, I would like to, as this is definitely, yes, the wine of my heart, I would like to very quickly say a few words about the Barbaresco.
Okay.
We enjoyed the Barbaresco 2008 today together. We still didn't finish the tasting, right? So I'm mentioning this because the Barbaresco is a typical Piedmontese wine. I used to work for the Gaja estate first in Bulgaria at La'Marcanda. Then I was at the Montalcino estate, Pieve Santa Restituta, and now I'm working in Piemonte for Gaja at Barbaresco. And when I arrived there, I was very curious about the Piedmontese, from Barbaresco, and yes, this wine reflects a lot the Piedmontese because it's first closed, and then it opens up more and more and more, and it becomes infinitely complex. So it's not a wine that is immediately ready, you know. It has to be explored, but it is a journey. It's an experience. It's not just wine drinking. And so, please, if you taste these wines, take time. Wait until the wine opens up completely, because this wine changes continuously. It's so, for me, there is no better dinner than have someone that appreciates good wines and to share the Barbaresco together and to talk about the Barbaresco and to see, to observe the complexity after 50 minutes, after 30 minutes, after an hour. It's really great. And I think this complexity comes also because this wine, the Nebbiolo for the Barbaresco, was blended, believe it or not, on 14 different Barbaresco terroirs. So you have the expression of the whole Barbaresco. You have, depending on the altitude, the exposure to the sun, the terroir, the soil types. So I think this is not only the flagship wine of Gaja, is not only one of my favorites, is not only the reason why it's an honor for me to be the Gaja wine ambassador, but I think this wine is, of course, one of the most important Italian red wine. We cannot really compare it with the other one, because the other one, as I told you, are made. This one is, we judge it an entry level, especially for the one that do not know Gaja, and of course not every day is a Barbaresco day. This is a wine made for special occasions, but yes, it's definitely a very special wine. So.
Okay, that's great. I think it's time for us to actually go and enjoy the wine now.
Yes.
So thank you once again for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.